Thank you, Deepak, for organizing Sages and Scientists again. For me, this is particularly personal this year because the land from where the sages came is suffering deeply. It's the land which inspired me. I was born there. I'm born in the Himalaya, born in the part of the Himalaya called Dev Bhumi, the sacred land. It's where our 4 sacred rivers that become the mighty Ganges begin. It is the land where at the source of these rivers, at 800 AD, Adi Shankaracharya set up the 4 shrines, Kedarnath, Badrinath, Yamunotri, Gangotri. Until a few years ago, they were shrines. They were for pilgrimage. But now, the land has been redefined. If we could stop at that image. Can we stop at that image? Yeah. Dev Bhumi has been redefined to be Urja Pradesh. Urja means electricity. And it's like we have an obsession with energy, consumptive energy. 500 dams are planned on the tributaries of the Ganga. More than 50 have already been built. And these dams create tunnels, hydro projects. All the debris is dumped on the riverbed. There are parts of the river I've seen that are now not flowing, and parts that have risen 40 feet because of the dumping. And the tunnels are made by blasting with dynamite. Homes are cracking, the mountains are cracking. If you could move back one. So one of the dams submerged the most important deity of our region, ancient. Her name is Dhari Devi. She is a Shakti. She's one of the 108 Shakti Peeths, sources of feminine energy. And as you will see in the slide, when the minute Dhari Devi and her shrine was broken, the calamity struck Kedarnath. And you will see how Kedarnath, which is the abode of Shiva, and today you are dressed in a Shiva, Deepak, I notice. Her Kali is known to unleash fury. The other temple to which she is related, half the body fell at Dhari Devi, half the body of Parvati, and the other half at Kalimat. Kalimat, the shrine, is just the Sri Chakra that was shown yesterday by Dr. Kak, the symbol of feminine energy, the creative force of the universe. We can go to the next. Now, this is a hand-drawn map because when the disaster struck on 16th of June, one day after the removal of the Dhari Devi shrine, all maps disappeared in India. We can't buy Survey of India maps about our region. So we are hand-drawing maps. And the dotted parts that you see are the new landslides that have been triggered. And even now, every time we try and set up a new place to build homes, there's one village, Chandrapuri, which has lost 66 homes of the 70 that were in that village. These are places where Navdanya has worked for the last 25 years doing organic farming. When we started to find locations, new landslides that are above Chandrapuri started to trigger. I just got a message while I'm here. The new site that had been found has also started to have cracks, and there will be landslides. So it's a shaking up of the mountains and the river systems like we've never seen, with the riverbed risen by 40 meters. The roads are going, the bridges are going, the schools are going, the homes are going. Now we can run through the slides. I'm not a PowerPoint person. My colleagues helped me put this together. Yes, next. So this is in May. Before the disaster is a bridge in May. After the disaster, you can see everything gone. The structures on the other side are the hydro dam structures. Next. That little bridge and the beautiful peepal tree gone. 3 days apart, this bridge has been washed off, and my colleagues are walking across planks. This beautiful river that flows from Kedarnath, Mandakini, blue water, one of the most beautiful rivers. If I was going to have a boy, I was going to name a girl, I was going to name her Mandakini. That's the name of the river. Today she is in fury. Next. Next. That school is gone, and you can see the college above. That whole mountain is slipping. By the end of the monsoons, we won't have it. These are the cranes from the hydro projects. Next, next, next. Just carry on now. That's how people are living in tents. Those temples are all gone. That's Kedarnath. Thank you. Switch that off. I see this disaster as a result of the monoculture of the mind. A monoculture of the mind that forgot that mountains have many, many purposes. My sisters of Chipko, 40 years ago, woke up the world to realize that forests were not timber mines. That forests played a role in stabilizing the mountains. And in fact, one of the most beautiful myths and stories in India is the descent of the Ganga. That when Bhagirath did penance for Sagar, and he traveled all the way begging the Bhagirathi, the Ganga, to descend to the earth, she said, I have too much force. I will destroy the earth. You need to ask Shiva to contain me in his hair. And we've always seen Shiva's hairs as the forests of the Himalaya. So when Chipko said, don't cut these trees, they protect our mountains, because of one or two small disasters had taken place, the government was forced to recognize that they were right when they started to spend more on disaster relief than on the logging revenues. Then they got out of logging revenues. And in 81, we got a logging ban. In 83, I did a study for our Ministry of Environment on the mining in our region, and we could show that the rocks left in the mountain performed a much bigger role economically than the minerals taken out. And yet, because of this fever of greed that has been unleashed on the world in the name of globalization, exploitation is the only value. Sacred values have disappeared. Conservation values have disappeared. Two sages, one has given his life and the other's about to give his life. Swami Niganand went on a fast and he died to protect the Ganga. Swami Sanand, who was one of India's most eminent civil engineers, hydrologists, has taught anyone in the water systems that exists in India, Dr. G.D. Agarwal. He's on a fast. He's been arrested. And all they want to do is protect the mountains and the rivers. The communities say it is the removal of the Hari Devi that is the destruction, the cause of the destruction. Of course, there are more proximate causes like the destroying of the carrying capacity of the river. We've literally stolen the riverbed from the rivers. And one of the biggest issues is to leave space for all of life as sentient beings, for human survival. You saw the images. I could go on talking about the disaster to you, but all I would like to say is the problem is serious. I invite you all to contribute, not just to the rehabilitation and a typical relief after a disaster, but rejuvenating the source of so much of the wisdom, whether it be the medicines that come for Ayurveda. This is the area where Ayurvedic medicines grow. And if we don't create a rejuvenation system, if we don't rejuvenate the knowledge, I won't go back to the map. One of the places that has been washed out is called Vidyapith. Had some of the most ancient Sanskrit texts and a Sanskrit university from where people used to learn. And of course, it's the source of water, but it's the source of some of the most resilient communities. The Kedarnath temple was at a glacier. The glaciers melted. Now there's a Chorabari lake which burst when this heavy rain came on June the 16th, and the rains haven't stopped. People are still dying. A child died the other day crossing a river. A government official died. And yet the corruption is not allowing the relief to reach the ground. There's also a silencing because of another kind of monoculture. The monoculture of a development paradigm that only sees exploitation. I work with the Bhutan government on redefining the development paradigm. The United Nations has asked Bhutan to prepare for next year a report on a new development paradigm, which puts well-being at the center, the well-being of the planet, the well-being of humans, the well-being of all species and all cultures, rather than the measurement of GDP, gross domestic product. So Bhutan evolved the concept of gross national happiness, and they centered their planning and policy on happiness and well-being. These new breakthroughs need to be developed much more. We've had so many presentations on yoga, we've had so much presentation on meditation and how it's having a huge impact on well-being. Can you imagine when a government, a regional government in India wants to make yoga a part of a school curriculum? It is attacked as being religious fundamentalist, as if the universal, that is yoga, was a parochial sectarian practice. Malaysia wanted to introduce yoga. They were attacked. And we have a huge confusion because of the monoculture of the mind. The monoculture of the mind in a world of diversity privileges one species, one perspective, one culture above all other possibilities. Privileging leads to exclusion and disappearance, or domination and violence. And it is at the root of ecological and social collapse. The Himalaya, the sacred land of so much learning, has been reduced to a source of electricity for a short time, which then destroys the entire system from where the electricity comes. That's a monoculture of the mind. Urja Pradesh and Energy Pradesh. There's a monoculture of the mind when we stop growing and cultivating and eating 8,500 crop species and grow 8. And now we shrink it to corn and soya, most of it which doesn't go to feed humans. Only 10% is used for human food. The rest is biofuel and animal feed. We're ignoring the diversity that sustains us ecologically, but we are ignoring the diversity that is needed for the paradigm shift. We've privileged one species, the human, and created an anthropocentrism. And I therefore get very worried when we used the word Anthropocene. And Deepak, I would request you to not call it the anthropic principle, because if it's something universal, let's keep it universal. It's not just about human beings. And we are not the center of the universe. We will survive only when we realize we are not. Privileging one gender, patriarchy, so much violence against women. And again, India has witnessed more rapes than ever before, more acid attacks than ever before, female fiticide, 30 million girls not allowed to be born, all because it's assumed only one gender should exist. Privileging one race. We opened with the beautiful music on the Symphony of Brotherhood by Mary. And all of the work against racism is a fight against a monoculture of the mind that says only white counts, only male counts. Privileging one religion. Look at what's happening on the streets of Egypt and Syria today. Because living with diversity has been forgotten. It's not just a religion, it's now sects within religion. Democracy itself has been wiped out within a very, very short period in Egypt. 149 people killed just 2 days ago. Privileging one knowledge system, too, is part of what the discussion has been. A mechanistic system which actually is a failure in the real world. It's a failure in providing food, it's a failure in providing health, it's a failure in managing the health of the planet. And sadly, it gives rise to an engineering paradigm. The genetic engineering paradigm in how we deal with food. A failed system. We've created superpests and superweeds, 70 million acres of the United States overtaken by superweeds. It's not a functioning technology. It's only functioning at the level of public relations. And so many speakers, including Shiva, talked about how, at this point, the narrative is not science. The narrative is public relations for maintaining power, profit, and vested interests. And that is why science and independent science must come back center stage. And we have to move beyond a greed-based, mechanistic engineering paradigm to a co-creation, co-evolution, co-production paradigm. That's the only way we are going to get food to the last person. It's the only way we're going to get health to the last person, and it's the only way we'll get security to the last child. I'm a quantum physicist, but I spent the last 30 years on food systems because I find it so crude that we use war chemicals when they should have totally been ended with the war itself. And now we are taking even more crude tools like genetic engineering, which are not increasing food production, they're not reducing chemical use, they are enslaving farmers. I talked last year about the farmer suicides. The figures have gone up beyond 284,000 since seed monopoly started. Seed is not an invention. Seed is a gift of life, of millennia of evolution, to be carried through into the future over millennia. GMO could be a message that is saying, God, move over. We are the creators, we are the landlords, we are the life lords, we'll collect rents, even if it means wiping out biodiversity, killing the bees, killing the farmers. We can do better in every field. Our intelligence is more. Our honesty should be better. Our courage has to be stronger. I think one of the worst confusions that we have to get over is the fact that we have replaced the oneness that connects us all and connects us to the universe with the privileged oneness of one expression and turned it into a fascist and dictatorship force, creating violence in every direction, and that violence gets deeper as the insecurities get deeper. Our discussion on scientists and sages must by necessity be an intervention in a very brutalized, collapsing world around us. And I would really like to invite you all to join our movements for seed freedom and food freedom, because that is where, as in Indian thinking, bija is the source. Seed freedom is the source of all other freedoms, because as we are struggling, we are not just talking about a shift in paradigm. We are struggling about extinction or the possibility to live. And that is why the transition has to be urgent and has to be honest and has to be with deep commitment. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you. So Vandana, I mean, we've known each other for a long time. You've been struggling in this field for a long time. You've been articulate, eloquent, spoken about this, activist, enraged a lot of people. And I'm asking you, like a brother, have you made progress?
Yeah, I think we have. We used to be 5 people who talked about these things. Now millions march against Monsanto.
So what's the next step then?
I think the next step is the real knowledgeable science that's emerging. For example, all the work on epigenetics. That's also not just affecting the field of health, it's affecting the field of food and agriculture, but it's not discussed in food and agriculture enough. And every scientist who speaks from real work is criminalized. Arpat Putsai, Seralini. I think a very important step is a network of support among the scientific community that's doing independent work, independent of corporate power.
And there is that science, and there is a holistic way to look at all this, but there's a lag time, as you obviously see. So we, again, this morning heard disaster scenarios, right? But also some solutions, and you're also offering solutions through Navdanya.
Yeah.
Do you see how this could be accelerated on a massive scale? Do you see a role for the consciousness project for this?
For sure. In fact, you know, when I was talking about engineering, I was thinking of the fact that 40% greenhouse gases that are contributing to climate change are coming from an industrialized, globalized agriculture that's also destroying 75% of the planet, biodiversity, water, soil, and destroying human health. 1 billion people hungry, 2 billion obese. The UN has just said 43 trillion is the cost. 4.3 trillion is the cost of obesity and obesity-related diseases, including in India, where 25% children in cities are now obese because they're being made to live on a junk food diet. So the solution to climate change, the solution to health, the solution to the ecological catastrophe is really, in a very rapid way, to spread organic farming. And the place where anyone can get involved is for all these other projects to get linked. We call it Seeds of Freedom, Gardens of Hope. Even in a little balcony with one pot, you can start a garden and save a seed. In a community, in a school. And I think every health project, every community health project needs to be linked to an edible garden. Every social healing project needs to be linked not just to yoga, but also to gardening. And part of it is a change in consciousness. When you garden, you cultivate love. Yeah? You want to give love? Garden.
So,
and one more little thing on that. We are always made to believe that industrial agriculture feeds the world. Only 10% of corn and soy is going food. 72% of the food people eat comes from small farms. Now, doesn't it make sense to make that 72%, 72%, 100%, rather than destroy all that, starve the people, finish the planet, and have a few profits for a short time on fake projections and fake promises?
How long are you staying here?
I'll go tomorrow.
You go tomorrow. So before you go, I think we need to you know, the fact is, despite all our distrust of science and technology, it's here to stay, right?
A mechanistic science. I'm a quantum physicist.
Yeah.
I have no distrust
It's here. No,
in
no, I'm
quantum
not
theory.
arguing with you. I'm only saying is how can we use that? How can we use the new global network, the new global brain, the new social media, you know, there's President Fox from Mexico here. There are people who have, Vishal Sikka just arrived from Germany. He has the ability to connect everybody in the world instantly. Why can't this be a part of a global movement, not just India, but everywhere?
Absolutely. And for example, simple thing on the Himalaya, here we are making maps with hands because all the maps have been removed, so we can't figure out. I think we need a global solidarity for the sacred Himalaya. And we need every discipline, whether it's hydrologists or geologists or remote sensing people or everyone to join. I would love for someone to verify these energy spots of the earth. It shouldn't be too difficult. You know, these are energy spots. But also in organic farming, we do a course, a 1-month course on organic farming called A to Z of agroecology and organic farming. And where modern science comes in is recognizing the soil organisms. You know, we can't see them with our eyes, but that little microscope. The farmer can suddenly see he was creating a desert from the soil, and now he's creating a miracle of life through organic farming. So there are all kinds of levels at which a globalized ecological science, spiritually informed, can be empowering at every level. And most important, that's why I said we have to go beyond the monoculture of the mind, because wherever a creative solution is being found from within a culture, it's slashed in the name of a monoculture. You know, yoga is Hindu, and therefore can't be allowed to be taught in a country where there is pluralism of religion.
Or so where it came from.
Or where it came from. So I think a global support system of this kind would elevate the universal back to the universal, and relocate the parochial back to where it belongs. In the smallness, it has a place, but it doesn't have a place of dominance and exclusion.
So I think we'd like to really make a commitment here and ask you also to make a commitment to this consciousness project, which links together some of the best minds like you.
But don't call it anthropic principle.
No, but that's...
Call it the cosmic.
I know. The anthropic principle is only...
As a responsibility, it's fine.
Is only used mathematically to define how human consciousness emerged.
Okay.
So just...
It's a little part of it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's anthropic, not anthropomorphic. Okay? So it's a slight difference.
Yeah.
But can you become an advisor to our
For
consciousness
sure. And
project?
let's write a book on what's needed for the everyday life and death matters of humanity.
Vandana Shiva.
Where our 4 sacred rivers that become the mighty Ganges begin. It is the land where at the source of these rivers, at 800 AD, Adi Shankaracharya set up the 4 shrines, Kedarnath, Badrinath, Yamunotri, Gangotri. Until a few years ago, they were shrines. They were for pilgrimage. But now, the land has been redefined. If we could stop at that image. Can we stop at that image? Yeah. Dev Bhumi has been redefined to be Urja Pradesh. Urja means electricity. And it's like we have an obsession with the other temple to which she is related. Half the body fell at Dhari Devi, half the body of Parvati, and the other half at Kalimat. Kalimat, the shrine, is just the Sri Chakra that was shown yesterday by Dr. Kak, the symbol of feminine energy, the creative force of the universe. We can go to the next. Now, this is a hand-drawn map because when the disaster struck on 16th of June, one day after the removal of the Dhari Devi shrine, all maps disappeared in India. We can't buy Survey of India maps about our region. So we are hand-drawing maps. Thank you, Deepak, for organizing Sages and Scientists again. For me, this is particularly personal this year because the land from where the sages came is suffering deeply. It's the land which inspired me. I was born there. I'm born in the Himalaya, born in the part of the Himalaya called Dev Bhumi, the sacred land. It's energy, consumptive energy. 500 dams are planned on the tributaries of the Ganga. More than 50 have already been built. And these dams create tunnels, hydro projects. All the debris is dumped on the riverbed. There are parts of the river I've seen that are now not flowing, and parts that have risen 40 feet because of the dumping. And the tunnels are made by blasting with dynamite. Homes are cracking, the mountains are cracking. If you could move back one. So one of the dams submerged the most important deity of our region, ancient. Her name is Dhari Devi. She is a Shakti. She's one of the 108 Shakti Peeths, sources of feminine energy. And as you will see in the slide, when the minute Dhari Devi, her shrine was broken, the calamity struck Kedarnath. And you will see how Kedarnath, which is the abode of Shiva, and today you are dressed in a Shiva, Deepak, I notice. Her Kali is known to unleash fury.